Welcome. You're about to begin a peaceful reading of core topics in human physiology. This is not a lecture meant to keep you alert or busy. It's a soft-spoken guide through the intricate systems of the body, shared at a slow, steady pace. There's no need to take notes, no need to stay focused. Just let the words wash over you as we explore the rhythms of breath, the flow of blood, the spark of neurons, all the quiet systems working in harmony within you. Whether you're here to learn passively, to relax, or to rest, you're exactly where you need to be. Let's begin. Let's begin with a quiet journey into one of the most foundational principles in human physiology: homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's elegant ability to maintain internal balance despite constant changes inside and outside of the body. It is not a fixed state, but rather a dynamic process, one that continuously adjusts internal conditions to keep them within a narrow, optimal range. Your body, even now, is monitoring and responding to fluctuations in temperature, pH, hydration, oxygen levels, and more. Let's gently explore how. The set point and the feedback loop. Imagine a thermostat in your home. It senses the room temperature, compares it to a set point, say 72 degrees, and adjusts the heating or cooling to bring the room back to that ideal range. Your body works in a similar way. Physiological systems detect when a variable strays from its ideal set point, then activate mechanisms to bring it back. This process is governed primarily by what is called a negative feedback loop. Negative feedback loops resist change. They reverse deviations. If your blood sugar rises after a meal, the pancreas releases insulin to lower it. If your body temperature drops, blood vessels constrict and you begin to shiver, generating heat. These corrections are quiet, continuous, often imperceptible, but they are vital to your survival. The role of the nervous system and the endocrine system. The nervous system, rapid, electrical, precise. The endocrine system, slower, hormonal, long-lasting. Together, they communicate through neurons and hormones, regulating countless variables across organ systems. For example, when your blood pressure drops, baroreceptors in your arteries send signals to the brainstem. The brain responds by increasing heart rate and constricting blood vessels to stabilize pressure. Or, when you're dehydrated, the hypothalamus detects increased blood osmolarity and triggers thirst, while also telling the pituitary gland to release antidiuretic hormone, helping the kidneys retain water. Examples of homeostatic control. Some of the most studied homeostatic mechanisms include body temperature regulation or thermal regulation, blood glucose regulation via insulin and glucagon, blood pressure control, acid-base balance, maintaining a blood pH near 7.4, oxygen and carbon dioxide balance via respiratory rate. Even sleep itself is part of homeostasis, Your brain builds pressure to sleep over the day and releases it during rest. Homeostasis is not perfect. Homeostasis doesn't mean perfect stillness. It means controlled variation. The body allows for small fluctuations within a range that's still safe. For example, your internal temperature may vary slightly depending on time of day, hormone cycles, or physical activity. When systems fail to compensate or when external stress is too great, homeostasis can break down. This can lead to illness, fatigue, or worse. Final thoughts. Homeostasis is the quiet symphony playing beneath your awareness. It's not something you control consciously, but it's always happening, adjusting, adapting, responding, maintaining an internal environment where your cells can thrive, where enzymes can work, and where you can rest. Tonight, as you breathe in and breathe out, homeostasis is at work, quietly, precisely, and always in your favor. The nervous system is divided into two main branches. The central nervous system, or CNS, which includes the brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system, or PNS, made up of all the nerves branching out from the spinal cord to the rest of the body. The nervous system is your body's information highway, receiving input, processing it, and sending out responses. This happens through specialized cells called neurons, long branching cells designed to transmit electrical signals. Your body contains approximately 86 billion neurons, each forming thousands of connections. These networks coordinate everything from blinking to breathing to remembering the scent of rain. Section 2. The neuron, the quiet messenger. Let's slow down and examine the structure of a neuron. Each neuron has a cell body or soma, where the nucleus lives, dendrites, short branching extensions that receive incoming signals, and a single axon which carries signals away from the cell body toward other neurons or muscles. The end of the axon splits into axon terminals, where signals pass to the next cell. This journey of a signal down the axon is called the action potential, a brief electrical impulse traveling like a wave of energy. But before we dive into the action potential, take a moment. Imagine one neuron reaching, stretching, transmitting quietly. Section 3. Action potentials. Electricity in thought. Neurons communicate through electrical impulses, but they don't fire continuously. They wait. Each neuron has a resting membrane potential of about -70 millivolts. This means the inside of the cell is more negative than the outside. This state is maintained by the sodium-potassium pump, which actively exchanges ions to keep the balance. When a neuron is stimulated, sodium channels open, allowing Na+ ions to rush in. This depolarizes the membrane. The charge becomes less negative, and if it crosses the threshold, an action potential is triggered. The impulse travels down the axon like a spark, but controlled and measured. Once it passes, potassium flows out, repolarizing the cell, resetting the membrane potential. This entire process takes milliseconds, but allows for every thought, every sensation, and every movement you make. Section 4. Synapses, the space between signals. When the action potential reaches the axon terminals, it reaches a synapse, the small gap between one neuron and the next. Here, the electrical signal becomes a chemical one. Neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and acetylcholine are released into the synaptic cleft. They drift across and bind to receptors on the next cell. This chemical handshake determines whether the next neuron will also fire. Synapses are tiny, but they form the foundation of memory, emotion, learning, and mood. Over time, repeated signals can strengthen or weaken these connections, a phenomenon called synaptic plasticity. This is how your brain learns, quietly, incrementally, silently changing. Section 5. Divisions of the nervous system. Calm control. The peripheral nervous system has two main branches. The somatic nervous system, under conscious control. It moves your skeletal muscles. You decide to reach, walk, speak. And the autonomic nervous system, which functions automatically. It regulates heart rate, digestion, pupil size, and blood pressure without conscious effort. And the autonomic system itself has two parts. The sympathetic division, which activates your fight or flight response, increasing heart rate, dilating pupils, slowing digestion, and the parasympathetic division, which brings calm, slowing the heart, encouraging digestion, and returning the body to a resting state. You can think of it like a seesaw. One side prepares for action, the other for restoration. This balance is constantly shifting without your awareness. Section 6. Reflex arcs. Instant decisions. Some responses are so fast, they don't even require your brain. This is the reflex arc, a simple neural pathway that bypasses the brain for speed. If you touch something hot, sensory neurons in your skin send a message to the spinal cord. There, interneurons immediately activate motor neurons, pulling your hand away in less than a second. Your brain becomes aware only after the movement has already occurred. These arcs protect you, fast, automatic, unthinking. Section 7. The brain. Organized silence. Finally, we arrive at the brain, the most intricate organ of all. It weighs about 3 pounds, but uses 20% of your body's energy. The cerebrum handles thought, language, memory, and consciousness. The cerebellum coordinates movement and balance. The brainstem regulates breathing, heart rate, and sleep. These regions contain gray matter, where processing happens, and white matter, the wiring that connects everything. Millions of signals cross your brain every second, yet you hear none of them. The quietest activity in your body may be the most powerful. Closing, neural harmony. And now, as you settle into stillness, let yourself drift deeper into appreciation for the neuron and its delicate fire, for the synapse and its invisible bridge, for the mind, not just conscious thought, but the entire nervous system, humming quietly, maintaining balance, preserving function, always watching over you. This is neurophysiology, and you are gently resting inside its work. Thank you for joining Slumber Studies. Let the noise fade. Let the silence speak. Let the nervous system unwind. Tonight, we ease into the gentle rhythm of the cardiovascular system, the silent circulation that sustains your body, beat by beat. As you rest, your heart continues its work, unseen, unheard, relentless, and reassuring. Let's begin with the basics and let your mind follow the flow. Section 1. Purpose and Overview. The Great Transport System. The cardiovascular system is your body's transportation network. Its primary components are the heart, a muscular pump, the blood vessels, including arteries, veins, and capillaries, and the blood itself, carrying oxygen, nutrients, hormones, and waste products. Every organ depends on this system, even your brain, which cannot go more than a few minutes without oxygen-rich blood. This system works constantly, adapting to your activity, your rest, your emotions, without asking for your attention. Section 2. The heart, a rhythmic pump. Let's pause and visit the center of it all, the heart. About the size of a fist, it sits just left of center in your chest, protected by the rib cage. The heart has 4 chambers, 2 upper chambers called atria, 2 lower chambers called ventricles. Blood flows through the heart in a one-way loop. Oxygen-poor blood returns to the right atrium. It moves to the right ventricle, which pumps it to the lungs via the pulmonary artery. In the lungs, carbon dioxide is exchanged for oxygen. Oxygen-rich blood returns to the left atrium. It enters the left ventricle, which pumps it into the aorta, the body's main artery. This cycle is called the cardiac cycle, and it repeats about 70 to 80 times per minute of every day. Quiet, steady, essential. Section 3. Electrical conduction, silent signals of the heart. The heart's rhythm is controlled by its own electrical system, independent, automatic. It begins in the sinoatrial node, or SA node, often called the natural pacemaker. From there, the impulse travels to the atrioventricular node, or AV node, then down the bundle of His and into the Purkinje fibers, which spread through the ventricles. This wave of depolarization causes the atria and ventricles to contract in perfect sequence, pushing blood forward. You don't feel these electrical signals, but you feel their result, the steady heartbeat, a calm, reliable presence. Section 4. Blood vessels, the pathways of circulation. Let's follow the blood beyond the heart. There are 3 main types of blood vessels: arteries, which carry blood away from the heart, veins, which return blood back to the heart, and capillaries, the smallest vessels, where exchange with tissues occurs. Arteries have thick muscular walls to withstand pressure. Veins have thinner walls and contain valves to prevent backflow. Capillaries are so small that red blood cells travel single file, allowing for efficient exchange of oxygen, nutrients, and waste. Altogether, your body contains over 60,000 miles of blood vessels, enough to circle the earth more than twice. And through every inch, blood moves persistently. Section 5. Blood pressure, force in the flow. Blood pressure is the force exerted by circulating blood on the walls of arteries. It has 2 components: systolic pressure, the peak pressure during heart contraction, and diastolic pressure, the resting pressure between beats. A typical blood pressure reading might be 120 over 80 millimeters of mercury, often written as 120 over 80 mmG Hg. Blood pressure is tightly regulated by the autonomic system, baroreceptors in the arteries, and hormones like angiotensin and aldosterone. Too high and vessels are strained. Too low and organs may not receive enough blood. So your body constantly adjusts without your awareness. Section 6. Blood, the transport medium. Now take a closer look at blood. Blood is made up of plasma, a clear straw-colored fluid that carries nutrients, hormones, and proteins. Red blood cells, filled with hemoglobin, which binds oxygen. White blood cells, defenders of the immune system, and platelets, which help with clotting. About 45% of your blood is made of cells. The rest is plasma. Every second, your body produces millions of new red blood cells in your bone marrow. And every second, these cells circulate, deliver oxygen, and return with carbon dioxide. Quiet messengers in constant motion. Section 7. Circulatory loops, systemic and pulmonary. The cardiovascular system is actually 2 connected loops: the pulmonary circulation, which moves blood between the heart and the lungs, and the systemic circulation, which moves blood between the heart and the rest of the body. Together, these loops ensure that every tissue, from your brain to your toes, receives what it needs and releases what it does not. This flow is seamless, balanced, coordinated by pressure, resistance, and vascular tone, all of it in silence. Conclusion: the soundless pulse of life. As you breathe quietly in the dark, your heart continues its work, never asking for attention. It pushes life forward, rhythmically. It listens to subtle signals from your brain, your kidneys, your vessels, and responds accordingly. It adapts when you run. It calms when you sleep. This is cardiovascular physiology, the study of how life moves within you. It is constant and calming. Let your own pulse guide you now as you drift deeper. Now we settle into the gentle rhythms of the respiratory system, the quiet, automatic dance between air and blood, breath and life. This system works for you, even as you sleep. Inhale, exhale. No effort, no thought. Let's take a calm walk through how your body breathes and why. Section 1. Purpose of the respiratory system: gas exchange. The primary role of the respiratory system is gas exchange, to bring oxygen into the body and remove carbon dioxide. Oxygen is essential for cellular respiration, the process by which cells produce energy. Carbon dioxide, a byproduct of that process, must be eliminated. So, breath by breath, this system quietly keeps your internal environment balanced without asking for your attention. Section 2. Anatomy of the respiratory system: upper and lower tracts. Let's start with the anatomy, divided into upper and lower parts. The upper respiratory tract includes the nose and nasal cavity, the pharynx or throat, and the larynx or voice box. These structures warm, humidify, and filter the air before it descends into the lungs. The lower respiratory tract includes the trachea or windpipe, the bronchi, which branch into each lung, the bronchioles, smaller tubes within the lungs, and finally the alveoli, tiny air sacs where gas exchange occurs. Your lungs contain about 300 million alveoli, providing a surface area roughly the size of a tennis court. Each inhale delivers air to this vast, quiet terrain. Section 3. Mechanics of breathing: inspiration and expiration. Breathing, also known as pulmonary ventilation, has two phases: inspiration, breathing in; expiration, breathing out. This is governed by pressure changes in the chest cavity. When you inhale, the diaphragm contracts, moving downward. The intercostal muscles between your ribs expand the chest. This creates negative pressure, pulling air into the lungs. When you exhale, the diaphragm relaxes. The chest cavity recoils. Air is gently pushed out. You breathe about 12 to 20 times per minute, even as you sleep. Quiet, cyclical, calm. Section 4. Gas exchange: the alveolar capillary interface. Now let's zoom in on the alveoli. Each alveolus is surrounded by capillaries, the smallest blood vessels. Here, oxygen diffuses from the alveoli into the blood, binding to hemoglobin in red blood cells. At the same time, carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood into the alveoli to be exhaled. This process relies on partial pressure gradients, simple differences in gas concentration. No effort, no noise, just molecules shifting across thin membranes. Efficient, passive, beautiful. Section 5. Transport of gases, oxygen, and carbon dioxide. Once in the blood, oxygen is transported primarily by hemoglobin, which can carry up to 4 oxygen molecules at a time. When blood reaches tissues, hemoglobin releases oxygen, allowing cells to breathe and create energy. Carbon dioxide is transported in 3 ways: dissolved directly in plasma, bound to hemoglobin, as bicarbonate ions formed through a chemical reaction with water. This transport system is finely tuned, pH balanced, and quietly coordinated. Section 6. Regulation of breathing, the respiratory centers. You don't have to think about breathing. That's thanks to the medulla oblongata and the pons, 2 structures in your brainstem. They monitor carbon dioxide levels, pH of the blood, and oxygen levels, though to a lesser extent. When carbon dioxide levels rise, the body responds by increasing ventilation. It's not the lack of oxygen, but the buildup of carbon dioxide that drives your need to breathe. This regulation is smooth, continuous, effortless, even now, as you rest. Section 7. Lung volumes, quiet capacities. The lungs have several different volumes and capacities measured in milliliters or liters. Tidal volume, TV, the amount of air moved during a normal breath, about 500 milliliters. Inspiratory reserve volume, IRV, the extra air you can inhale after a normal breath. Expiratory reserve volume, ERV, the extra air you can exhale. Residual volume, RV, air that remains in the lungs even after full exhalation. These volumes add up to your total lung capacity, around 6 liters in an adult, yet at rest you only use a fraction. The lungs are always ready to do more, but content to do just enough. Conclusion. Breath by breath. Breathing is the first thing you do when you're born, and often the last thing you notice each day. It brings in life and carries away waste. Every breath is a quiet exchange between the outside world and your inner self. This is respiratory physiology, the study of the silence between the inhale and the exhale. Let your breathing soften now. Let it slow. Now let's journey inward to the kidneys, quiet, bean-shaped organs tucked against your back, hardly noticed yet constantly working. In this moment, they are filtering your blood, balancing electrolytes, and regulating your body's inner environment. Let's begin our deep dive into renal physiology, the science of your silent filtration system. Section 1. Purpose of the renal system. The kidneys maintain homeostasis by filtering blood, removing waste, balancing fluids and electrolytes, and regulating blood pressure. They also help regulate acid-base balance, stimulate red blood cell production via erythropoietin, and activate vitamin D. Each day, your kidneys filter about 180 liters of plasma, yet only about 1 to 2 liters become urine. The rest is carefully reabsorbed, an elegant system of conservation and control. Section 2. Anatomy, a closer look at the kidneys. Each kidney contains approximately 1 million nephrons, the functional filtration units. Zoom in and you'll find each nephron includes a renal corpuscle made of the glomerulus and Bowman's capsule, a renal tubule consisting of the proximal tubule, loop of Henle, distal tubule, and collecting duct. Together, these structures allow the kidneys to filter, reabsorb, secrete, and excrete. The 4 pillars of renal function. Every second, blood enters through the renal artery, is filtered in the cortex, and exits through the renal vein, clean and balanced. What remains becomes urine and quietly leaves through the ureters into the bladder and finally out through the urethra. You may only notice it a few times a day, but the process is continuous, effortless. Even now, your kidneys are regulating your internal chemistry, one draught at a time. Section 4. Reabsorption, keeping the essentials. Next, the filtrate enters the proximal convoluted tubule, where reabsorption begins. Here, the body reclaims over 65% of filtered water, nearly 100% of glucose and amino acids, and vital electrolytes like sodium, potassium, and bicarbonate. The loop of Henle then concentrates the urine. Its descending limb reabsorbs water. Its ascending limb reabsorbs sodium and chloride, but not water. This countercurrent mechanism creates a concentration gradient, allowing your body to conserve water or excrete it as needed. Section 5. Secretion, fine-tuning. In the distal tubule and collecting duct, the kidneys actively secrete substances into the filtrate. Hydrogen ions for acid-base balance, potassium ions, certain drugs and toxins. This secretion process fine-tunes the filtrate, adapting to the body's immediate needs moment by moment. Hormones like aldosterone and antidiuretic hormone, ADH, adjust sodium and water reabsorption based on signals from the brain and blood pressure. It's an elegant symphony, played in silence. Section 6. Urine formation and excretion. By the time the filtrate reaches the collecting duct, it has become urine, a yellowish fluid of waste, electrolytes, and water. This urine flows through the renal pelvis, down the ureters, into the bladder, and finally out through the urethra. You may only notice it a few times a day, but the process is continuous. Section 7. Blood pressure and hormonal control. The kidneys play a central role in blood pressure regulation. They monitor blood flow using a structure called the juxtaglomerular apparatus, which secretes renin when pressure drops. Renin activates the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, RAAS, causing vasoconstriction, sodium and water retention, and a rise in blood pressure. This feedback loop ensures adequate perfusion, not just for the kidneys, but for every cell in your body. Quietly, reliably. Conclusion. Silent guardians of homeostasis. You rarely think of your kidneys, but they never stop thinking of you. Filtering, rebalancing, restoring, without a sound. They measure your blood, adjust your fluids, monitor your pH, all in real time. This is renal physiology, a silent act of constant care every minute, every day. Let your thoughts soften now. Let your breathing slow. You are safe and your body is wise.
Now, let's turn our attention to the digestive system. It begins with a simple bite and becomes a long, coordinated journey, one that breaks down, absorbs, transports, and eliminates. While you rest, your gastrointestinal system continues its quiet rhythm. Let's take a closer look at the peaceful physiology of digestion, absorption, and balance. Section 1. Purpose and Overview. The gastrointestinal, or GI, system is a muscular tube approximately 30 feet long, stretching from your mouth to your anus. Its mission is simple but vital: to break food into absorbable units, absorb nutrients, water, and electrolytes, and eliminate what's left. This happens through motility, secretion, digestion, absorption, and excretion, all tightly regulated by the enteric nervous system and hormones. It's not just a gut feeling, it's a highly intelligent system. Section 2. Mouth to stomach. Ingestion and initial digestion. Digestion begins in the mouth. Here, mechanical chewing breaks food down, while saliva, rich in enzymes like amylase, begins to digest carbohydrates. Swallowing is a coordinated reflex that carries food down the esophagus, through the lower esophageal sphincter, and into the stomach. In the stomach, gastric glands secrete hydrochloric acid to denature proteins, pepsinogen, which becomes pepsin, to digest proteins, and mucus to protect the stomach lining. The stomach churns and mixes food into a semi-liquid called chyme, preparing it for the small intestine. Section 3. The small intestine. Absorption central. The small intestine is where nearly all digestion and absorption occur. It has 3 regions: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. The duodenum receives chyme from the liver and enzymes from the pancreas, including lipase for fats, amylase for carbs, trypsin and chymotrypsin for proteins. Bile emulsifies fats, increasing their surface area for enzymatic digestion. By the time chyme reaches the jejunum, digestion is well underway. The inner surface, lined with villi and microvilli, maximizes surface area, allowing absorption of glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, and minerals. The ileum continues absorbing nutrients and reclaims bile salts for reuse. Section 4. GI motility, a gentle rhythm. The entire GI tract moves through coordinated muscle contractions known as peristalsis, rhythmic waves that push food forward. There are also segmental contractions, which mix food and bring it into contact with the absorptive surfaces. This motility is regulated by the enteric nervous system, sometimes called the second brain, along with hormonal signals like motilin, cholecystokinin, and gastrin. Digestion isn't rushed. It's deliberate, thoughtful, a silent orchestra of muscle and nerve. Section 5. Pancreas, liver, and gallbladder, silent helpers. The pancreas is both an exocrine and endocrine organ. It secretes digestive enzymes, bicarbonate, to neutralize stomach acid. The liver processes nutrients absorbed from the intestine and stores glycogen, vitamins, and iron. The gallbladder stores and concentrates bile, releasing it when fats enter the duodenum. These organs work in quiet harmony, assisting digestion without making a sound. Section 6. The large intestine. Water, bacteria, and waste. Once digestion is complete, unabsorbed material enters the large intestine, or colon. Here, the focus is absorption of water and electrolytes and the formation of feces. The colon is also home to trillions of gut bacteria, the microbiome, which ferment undigested carbohydrates, synthesize vitamins like K and some Bs, and help protect against harmful pathogens. What's left is moved along slowly until finally excreted through the rectum and anus. The digestive cycle is complete, quiet, and balanced. Section 7. Regulation and integration. The GI system is self-regulating, adapting constantly to what you eat or don't eat. Hormones like gastrin increases gastric acid, secretin stimulates bicarbonate, cholecystokinin, CCK, stimulates bile and enzyme release. Meanwhile, the enteric nervous system adjusts motility and secretion locally, with minimal help from the brain. This allows digestion to continue even while you sleep or rest. It's not on autopilot, it's self-aware. Conclusion: the quiet intelligence within. The gastrointestinal system is one of your body's most sophisticated networks. It breaks down the outside world and transforms it into energy, repair, and resilience. With every bite, it performs 1,000 tasks. And even now, in this quiet moment, it's working for you. Steady, silent, sustaining you.
Now we move through the silent signals of the body, the messengers that travel through blood instead of nerves, the chemical conversations that shape growth, metabolism, sleep, stress, and even mood. This is the world of endocrine physiology, where hormones whisper and your body listens. Let's take a slow, deep breath and begin. Section 1. What is the endocrine system? The endocrine system is a collection of glands that release hormones directly into the bloodstream. Unlike nerves, which act fast and local, hormones are slow and global. They affect cells at a distance, influencing development, metabolism, reproduction, and internal balance. Some glands act continuously. Others pulse and shift with your needs. But all are connected in one long feedback loop of chemical precision. Section 2. The hypothalamus and the pituitary glands, the control center. At the base of the brain lies the hypothalamus, a small structure with immense influence. It links the nervous system to the endocrine system. It monitors things like blood temperature, nutrient levels, sleep-wake cycles, and emotional states. It then sends signals to the pituitary gland, often called the master gland. The anterior pituitary releases TSH for thyroid function, ACTH for adrenal activation, LH and FSH for reproduction, GH for growth, prolactin for milk production. The posterior pituitary stores and releases oxytocin, which helps with bonding and birth, and ADH, which helps regulate water balance, all from a tiny gland, just the size of a pea. Section 3. The thyroid gland, regulator of metabolism. The thyroid gland, located in the neck, releases T3, triiodothyronine, and T4, thyroxine. These hormones increase metabolic rate, heart rate, heat production, and nervous system activity. They are essential for brain development and energy use. When thyroid hormones are low, everything slows. When they are high, everything speeds up. Like a thermostat, it keeps your internal temperature just right. Section 4. The adrenal glands, responders to stress. Perched above each kidney are the adrenal glands, 2 layers, 2 purposes. The adrenal cortex produces cortisol, the stress hormone, aldosterone, which controls salt and water balance, and androgens, minor sex hormones. The adrenal medulla, controlled by the sympathetic nervous system, releases epinephrine and norepinephrine, also known as adrenaline. These help you respond to danger, but also regulate daily rhythms, blood pressure, and energy release. Even in rest, they continue their careful balance. Section 5. The pancreas, regulator of blood sugar. The pancreas is both a digestive and endocrine organ. Its islets of Langerhans release insulin from beta cells to lower blood glucose, and glucagon from alpha cells to raise it. Together, they maintain glucose homeostasis, fueling the brain, muscles, and tissues with just the right amount of sugar. Too much insulin, and the brain slows. Too little, and energy slips away. So the pancreas adjusts moment by moment. Section 6. The gonads, hormones of reproduction. In females, the ovaries release estrogen and progesterone. These regulate the menstrual cycle, pregnancy, and bone health. In males, the testes release testosterone. This drives muscle mass, red blood cell production, and fertility. Both sets of hormones also affect the brain, shaping mood, libido, and behavior. And both respond to signals from the pituitary gland, forming a delicate reproductive loop. Section 7. Other endocrine organs. Several other tissues act like endocrine glands. The pineal gland in the brain releases melatonin, regulating your sleep-wake cycle. It responds to darkness, whispering that it's time to rest. The parathyroid glands, 4 small glands behind the thyroid, release parathyroid hormone, PTH, which controls calcium balance. Even the heart, fat tissue, and kidneys release hormones like ANP, leptin, and erythropoietin, contributing to blood pressure, hunger, and red blood cell production. Endocrine signals are everywhere, coordinating quietly behind the scenes. Section 8. Feedback loops and regulation. Endocrine function depends on feedback, primarily negative feedback. When hormone levels rise, the system slows down. When levels drop, it speeds back up. This keeps the body in homeostasis. Not too much, not too little. A balance as gentle as a breath in and a breath out. Conclusion: the silent symphony within. The endocrine system speaks without sound. It regulates without force. And it keeps your body aligned with its needs even while you sleep. Every heartbeat, every shift in energy, every emotional wave is touched by a chemical signal. As you rest, those signals continue. Quiet, constant, balanced. As we come to the end of this quiet exploration, let your mind soften. Let the space behind your eyes rest. The body is always working for you, adjusting, regulating, restoring balance, even when you're not aware, especially when you're still. These silent systems, the hormones that drift gently through your bloodstream, are part of the body's own rhythm. Like waves, steady, calm, and wise. There's nothing to do now, nowhere to go. Just allow yourself to settle into the quiet. Let your breath guide you deeper into rest. You're safe, you're supported, and your body knows exactly what to do. Thank you for being here with Slumber Studies. Good night.